Boom. There we go again. Nailed it. We even managed to slide Andy Slater in right on the end as he comes flying through the door just in time. Welcome. It is Wolf United WFC, and it's been a while. It's been a while. And what a week it has been, both nationally and football-wise. So we decided that as we got ourselves back into the football business, it could only be time to get three of the most fantastic people that I know, and also three vastly more knowledgeable people about Manchester United women than myself. So, of course, we've got the big boss, Connor, because I think he was getting withdrawal symptoms. How you doing, Connor?
Yeah, all good. It's been a crazy old week. I don't even know what day it is. It's like, it feels like that time in between Christmas and New Year, doesn't it? Like, I don't know what day it is. I don't know what's going on. I just want to get talking United again.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's going to be good to do so. Of course, we've also managed to bring in Shane. We've requested that he didn't have his background because he kept missing into it. So it's the Terminator Live. How are you doing, Shane? You all right?
Yeah, good mate. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for coming. And this for me is a personal honour because this marks the start of an actual chase that I've managed to win here. It's been hard to get Andy onto the show because he's a very busy man. But Thursday appears to be the night. So Thursday nights are made for dancing. Here's Andy Slater. How you doing, mate?
I'm not so bad. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind so much if Shane blended into his background a little bit.
To be fair, we felt the same. So, listen, there is so much to talk about. We've got 31 people already sitting here watching, and I feel zero pressure. I could literally just do that and say, hi, Taib, how you doing? Nice to see your stuff. But let's be honest, we all know what you're here for. We all know what it is you'd like to talk about. And yes, that is Connor's real hair. So, there we go. Operating before saying yes. Yeah.
What's going on here?
Just delaying. We all know that. It was indeed today. I came up with so many different strap lines for this, but I'm just going to go straight in with it because Jackie Groenen, a player that we've had for a couple of years now, being a very good player for us in the most part, has disappeared from sight. She has travelled to pastures new. She obviously enjoyed Toulouse so much that she went just down the road to Paris Saint-Germain. So she's off to there. I think really what would be a good thing would be just to try and get a few people's feelings and thoughts initially about how they feel about the departure of Jackie Groenen. And we're going to go the other way around. We're going to kick off with Andy, if we don't mind, on that one. What's your thoughts?
Well, she's obviously a quality player and very easy to like. So, you know, it's disappointing to see her go, but we've been kind of anticipating the possibility since probably the middle of last season. So it's nothing new. It's a shame that it's happened after the incoming window was closed. But then if we'd have lost her at the beginning of summer and then signed 7 players, you'd think, oh, all right then. Yeah, disappointing, but we've recruited. It's just because it's the other way around, it feels more of a negative. You're looking at the squad with the additions and with Jackie and everybody else, and then it feels like a loss. But as far as the squad goes, I think we've still got enough. If she'd have gone earlier and we'd made these signings, I wouldn't be screaming out for another midfielder. It'd be nice, but I wouldn't be screaming out for it. So, sad to see a likeable player leave. Not devastated because I'm still excited about our prospects this season.
Perfectly reasonable view, as you would expect, no less of that from our wonderful fanzine editor there, Mr. Andy Slater. So, Shane, what about for you? The news obviously broke today. There's been rumours about it for some time that she might be on the off. What was your initial reaction when you saw the official news today?
Other than goodbye, look, inconvenient, I think, is the word I'd use for it. Andy covered it then. It's done outside of our transfer window, so even if you wanted to, we can't bring in what some might say would be an adequate replacement for Jackie. You know, she's absolutely a quality player. I think we will miss her. she did bring something different to that midfield, and to a degree we needed to build the midfield around her, so we will miss her. But as I've said, much to a lot of dislike this week, it seems the world does still turn. We will move on. We have a lot of other players in that team. We spoke a while ago, I think I've seen it a couple of comments already. Vilde didn't get much game time last season. People wanted to get more. This might be her chance. I want someone to force themselves into that midfield now and make that position their own. Yes, it's absolutely devastating for some that Jackie's gone, but Man United is still there. We're still going to play a game on Saturday. We're still going to go and watch them. We're still going to cheer them on. Doesn't matter who's on the pitch. So, yeah, there's my piece on that one.
Good points. Good points again. And again, as Shane just said there, why, Jackie, why? We've got people literally like that at the moment, wading into their portable devices at this moment in time. Are you wading into yours, Connor? What was your initial reaction when you had it all confirmed to you?
I mean, it's a loss for sure. I said it, when it was rumoured ages ago, losing any player that's just kind of a starter, I guess, in your team is going to be a loss whenever they go. So, yeah, it's a bit of a shame that it's happened now. There's a number of reasons as to why. I tweeted it yesterday that you're going to hear, depending on how much you want to listen to and who you believe, you're going to hear a side from Jackie's side, you're going to hear a side from PSG, you're going to hear a side from United's point of view. They're all going to be different, which they are. And the truth will be somewhere kind of in the middle as to why she's gone now. I wouldn't read too much into what Skinner said today. He's going to say what he needs to say in a press conference. He's not going to come out and tell everybody what people want to hear, because that's not his job. If you look at previous managers that have managed the club that have been a bit too open about certain dealings in the club, it doesn't end well for them, does it? So, yeah, I think I wouldn't read too much into that. It's definitely a loss to the team. It's not the end of the world. I think there's more players that, if you're looking at Honor and Russo, to me, they're more pivotal to the team than maybe Jackie is. But that's not to say she's a bad player, and she's definitely going to be a miss in midfield. The question now is what happens to the midfield, because when we did we've done a few shows over, how do we fit signings in? What's our best 11? All of that. Jackie was in pretty much every one. So now we need someone to go into that slot. Can Vilde fill that gap? I'm sure she can. I think obviously highly rated. So in terms of initial reaction, that's kind of my initial reaction. I hate saying that, but it is what it is. She's moved on. She wanted to leave. I don't think she didn't want to be here. I just think she wanted to look elsewhere. I think that's what it is. There's a little bit of a misconception. People say, how can you say she didn't want to be at United? I'm not saying that. She just didn't. I think she would have been happy to probably stay. I don't think she'd have kicked up a fuss too much, but she did want to leave. And people have got to accept that side of it as well, that she was looking elsewhere. So here's what it is. We'll move on, but we do need to make sure that we get a replacement in at some point, whenever that is. But I think Vilde can be that replacement. I don't think we need to be scouting the transfer market too much.
Fair points. And this is the point that really I wanted to sort of kick off with, because there's so many different avenues you could travel down with this particular transfer. But this is the interesting one, because obviously the transfer window for us has closed. We're not able to bring anybody else in. Skinner himself feels quite content with the team that we've got, and obviously felt comfortable enough to let Jackie go. But exactly what Sporty Chatbox has just said here, she thinks the situation has been handled badly, should have been done before the window slammed shut, presumably, so we've got the chance to bring someone in. Do we think that it's a bit dangerous to let someone go when they don't have the chance to bring somebody in? Or is it more sensible that she's probably going to have signed a pre-contract agreement in January and would have just gone at the end of the season for nothing? Is it better to get that rather than sit here and go through the torture of having Jackie play when really she doesn't want to be here? What's your thoughts on that one, panel? We'll go around the same order as we just went, but follow on after each other, because I don't feel the need to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think if we'd kept her, if we'd rejected the offer and then we lose her for nothing, there's the slightest chance we're doing well with challenging for the Champions League and she might want to stay. But then it's a big risk to take when somebody has had a contract in front of them for months and hasn't signed it. If you get an offer when you're a few months away from losing for nothing, that would be bad football management to not accept that offer. Unless they were absolutely irreplaceable, then that would be a big risk. And I know that as far as United's finances go, as a whole club, these numbers are peanuts. But the dealing in women's football, and if you want to take women's football seriously, you need to deal in the values that women's football has got at the minute. So you've got the whole losing for nothing. You've got a player that's had a contract in front of her. If she'd signed that months ago, this wouldn't be a thing. If you'd signed it last week, this wouldn't be a thing. You can't say it should have wrapped this up before the season, before the transfer window shut, before our transfer window shut or whatever, because that's when the offer came in. If we only had one other midfielder, I'm sure it wouldn't matter how much came along. I'm sure the club would have rejected it, no matter how much it was. But the position we're in, the bad football management would have been to reject that offer and keep a player who hasn't signed a contract that's been in front of her for months and that could go for nothing very soon.
I think to add to that as well, it was quite shrewd from the club, really, because obviously, as we've all come to know and learn watching women's football, it was particularly with Man United, there seems to be these options that get included with any deal. When we sign someone, it's always 2 years plus an option of a further year, which as we're led to believe either side of that deal can activate it, be it the club or the player. So the club have obviously used their brains here and said, well, we'll activate it, knowing there's a chance a bid might come in that we might feel is acceptable to accept. And that's basically what's happened. If they didn't activate that option, Jackie goes on a free earlier this year anyway, before the Euros. So the club are kind of protecting themselves there in a way. I'll go back to what I said earlier, it being inconvenient because the French window's still open, ours isn't. We're not going to be the only club in that position. But again, it is the inconvenience of it that I'd probably like the least, where we can't replace someone if she feels she needs replacing. The club might not feel she needs replacing. They might feel that we've got options enough to cover what she's done, which we kind of don't have a choice now. The ones that are there have got to fill in, so you've got to step up. You've got to perform to the levels that she was capable of. And she didn't do it all the time, but she did most of the time. This is the point. I think when she first came in, first season, there was a lot of indifference about Jackie's performances. Some absolutely loved her, some weren't sold on her. I think it's safe to say the last two, she was much, much better, to the point you'd argue that she'd be put in the world-class bracket. And if you're going to put players in a world-class bracket, the teams that have squads full of world-class players are going to come knocking on the door for them. We got it at the very first season with Alex Greenwood. People said this would happen, and it is happening, and I'm not actually surprised by it in the slightest.
Shane, you raise a good point, because if the club don't feel she needs replacing, then obviously, well, we've got no choice now anyway. But I know you just brought that comment on screen, Barry, but I want to go back to something Marty said, because it's good for Jackie not to sign a low ball offer. Now, that's a key point in this, because none of us know what the offer was that was made to Jackie. Now, obviously, she didn't really want to stick around. That's pretty obvious to the that kind of offer from PSG. They've kind of been flirting with each other all summer. Anyone, if you go back to the last game of the season, you could look at the rumours were around. So you're nicking my that's kind of one of my little points, that she didn't want to. Now, none of us are going to know the reason. You can talk to whoever you want. Obviously, everyone's got their own people they trust with information and things like that. I can only go off things that people that I believe, and everything else. I think the contract probably wasn't as good as she was expecting, but at the same time, if you really want to stay, you would stay, wouldn't you? So I think the difference with Jackie, and I think all three of you are on the same show when I said that, and I think Slater, you've raised this a number of times as well, that with Jackie's age, it's different to the Honor and Russo situation. Honor and Russo are a bit younger. They've got a bit more time. They can stay a year or two. Whereas Jackie, she's getting to that point now. This is probably the last big move that she will get. What's the deal? Is it 3 years with PSG, I think? So it's a tough situation for United. But in regards to the sale, I think they had to accept it. I don't think the timing's really bad. But as somebody said, it might have been Slater, you said it, that's when the offer came in. It wasn't offered before that. So what do we do then? Do we reject it and keep a player that doesn't particularly want to be here and has had their head turned? Jackie's a professional. She'd have played. But it's very hard. You can be a professional, but if you've had your head turned and you've got your head set on going and that move doesn't happen, it's very hard to get back in the game with a team that you have expected to be leaving. So it's tough. I don't think there's a right, or people would have been annoyed whatever had happened. If we'd have sold her at the start of the window and didn't replace her, can you imagine the uproar then? If we didn't sign her, a high-class midfielder, if she'd have gone at the start of the window. That's my only issue with this, just very quickly, is that this wasn't done, a couple of months ago. Get it done then. She wanted to leave. Either tell her you're staying, no offer comes in, we're accepting, or get it done then. Go to PSG, start that negotiation. So that's my only kind of issue with the sale as such.
Well, that's a nice little segue because here I have I think you can't see it because of the background. And when I do that, look, I'm gone. See you later.
You did a great impression of me, Barry.
Wasn't it good? I loved it. So if you excuse me, I'm getting a little bit old and I need to double check what's being said. So there you go. It's all a bit weird for you. But talking about the Jackie Groenen departure, this has been from Rich Laverty and the conversation he had with Mark Skinner. Says that there was interest before the window, but there wasn't any previous bids. So the bids have only just come in, hence why they've only just dealt with it. They don't take it seriously unless they show intent. We're not necessarily going to chase after it, basically. He doesn't talk about the price because he thinks it's a good price for both parties, but it's not the right thing to talk about. And he then goes on to talk about our midfield options. He mentioned Vilde Bøe Risa, he mentions Hayley Ladd, and he said he's comfortable in the moment with the deal to allow Jackie to leave. And I found all of this quite interesting. And actually, just going back to what you put up here, Connor, just a moment ago, again, Marty, hope you're all right. Hope you're feeling better soon as well, because her arm's not working, which does mean that if she was to come onto one of our shows, she wouldn't be able to lift it and disappear. So maybe that's a bonus. I don't know. We'll find out on the next Fans Forum, Marty. But I digress. I found this one interesting because my only reaction to this when I heard the information coming out was that if the offer was too low, if it was Alessia Russo, I think she's got the right to turn around and say, no, I deserve more because look what I've done in the Euros. Look what I've done for Manchester United. So I thought, can I find this argument for Jackie Groenen? So I've spent the last hour looking through various statistical places. For reference, the two that I have used are the Manchester United Women's Programme for the 1st of May against West Ham, and then found the information from Google about the 2 games that were missing, and some website that gives assists and such like. We'll worry about that in a minute. Here's the strap line that I want to come up with. There are 18 people in our club who have played for us that have never scored a goal. The only person who has played more games than Jackie Groenen and not scored a goal is Mary Earps. She's played 69 games and scored none, which I think we can let her off because it's not really our job to do that. Everybody else who you would expect to be in that list has scored them. So if you go down the list of people that have scored a goal, you're talking about Hayley Ladd, played the games. This is defender sometimes, and a defensive midfielder, 5 goals. 60 appearances, the exact same amount as Jackie Groenen. Kirsty Smith, legend, 58 games, 1 goal. Martha Harris, 49, God bless you, Martha, 1 goal. Was a penalty, though, and it was part of a bet, so fair point. On a Batcher, 50 and 2. Thor, 35 and 1. Do you get my drift? We're talking about a player here, and everybody's disappointed. And I get that because we all have our favourite players. We've got players we take to heart, whether they're fantastic or not. But we've got to look at this now from a we want to move forward point of view. She hasn't scored as many goals. Are we really going to miss Jackie Groenen in the team? Are we really? So that's my first one, and I will do my assist statistic in a bit. But I know it's a harsh one, but are we really? Because 60 games, no goals, and when I get to the assists, she's not leading on that either. So I suppose really, are we just getting a little bit upset because we like her and, because we just can't get enough? Is that it? What? Tell me more. We're going to kick off with you, though, Shane, just to change it about a little bit.
Let me just crawl out from under the bus. Look, with football, you can watch a game one or two ways in a really simple form. You can either look at the stats or you can look at what you see with your eyes. And both are perfectly valid, but there are a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this just as much as anyone, where we can get so wrapped up in statistics, and every year there's another new statistic invented. Expected goals came about at some point. What a load of that is, can I say? Because I just don't believe in that stat at all. But you know, you've got stats, and you can look at those and say she's played this many number of games. She hasn't scored a goal in 3 seasons, 4 seasons, whatever it's been. There's defenders that have played for us that have scored more goals individually. You can say that. But then also you can watch a game with your eyes and you can see what she does on the pitch and how she influences things and passes she makes or tries to make. That, you know, we know players like Jackie, that pass doesn't always come off. Sometimes they can be the most intercepted player on the pitch because they're always trying to make these risky passes or progressive passes or however you want to call them. And there's not an argument either way. You know, the stats don't lie, but neither do people's eyes, and people will see what they see. It's just, and they will form an opinion based on what they see. You know, I can watch a game in the ground and think this person's done all right, and this one's not done so well, and then I might watch it back on telly and see all the stats flash up and go, well, they did better than I thought, and they didn't do as well as I thought. So a lot of it is completely about perspective. But you know, I don't think anyone can disagree. We will miss her, but as I keep saying, this isn't the end of the world. And to answer your other point, Barry, yes, you know, a lot of the fan base, they do like Jackie. We like Jackie. I can say I like Jackie. I'm a fan of Jackie, but Jackie's gone now. So there's the team that's going to be there Saturday. That's where my energy goes now.
100%. And I need to point out that the things that are on here right now, the fact that I've just said that about the goals, that's not because we're trying to sit here and have a go at Jackie Groenen. That's absolutely not what we're doing. But the purpose of a discussion show, the purpose of anything where there's going to be opinions and debates, number one, you've got to understand that there's going to be two sides to it. Otherwise, it's not an argument. We're all just sitting there praising or arguing, depending on what you're doing. But secondly, fact, statistics, eyes, it matters. You need to get everything in there. And you've got to not be afraid, I think, to sit there and say, ultimately, for a world-class player, if you put that in any other game, 60 games, no goals, would not go down well. I mean, Diego Forlan, it's at Liverpool for him to be able to crawl out under his rock. It was almost painful watching him, the poor thing. So, you know, I get what we're doing, but he still did it. He still did it. Andy, I mean, am I chatting rubbish? I mean, it's 60 games, no goals. I mean, when you add that to our goals list, it's still exactly the same. What's the difference in your eyes?
Yeah, it is a telling stat. It is a bit of a shock. I mean, it's not a shock to our knowledge because it's well known that she's never scored. But when you look at it in comparison, then you think, you know, like you said, Thor has scored. Martha Harris has scored. Caveat that it was the penalty in the bet, but still, the point you make is a fair one. I don't think it means we won't miss her. I do think a lot of people are disappointed because we like her, as you said. But then I like Thor, but she's not good enough to start in our defence with the squad we've got. You can like a player, but recognise that they're not essential and that your team's going to fall apart without them. I think if you look at our midfield, it seems like quite a simplistic view these days of midfield. There's 6, there's 8s, and there's 10s. I think you look at Jade Moore and Hayley Ladd as 6s, Zellum and Bøe Risa as 8s, and then Ella Toon as the 10. You put Staniforth in there as a backup, Clinton as a hot prospect. But we're not short. Even without her, we're not short. So while we've lost quality, yeah, of course we've lost quality, but we've not lost goals. We'll always have that back heel at Kings Meadow. We'll always have that to look back. But yeah, she'll be missed, but it's not. It's not a disaster.
Okay, and again, lovely person. There's no dramas with that. We know that Jackie's a wonderful person, and she's a good player. Nobody's claiming that she's not good. But this, I mean, I struggle with this. I try my hardest to be neutral, but she was the most accomplished and probably the best player in the team. I mean, I think Ella Toon's going to beat her on that one, hands down. The Centurion Ella Toon. We've got one of those coming up on Saturday as well. Looking forward to that one. We'll get to that in a bit though. I think the most important thing though here, we just saw Marty say as well, Connor, on one of the messages, that Mark Skinner has made the wrong decision here. Do you put any blame at all onto Mark Skinner for, number one, the sale, as well as answering, whether or not we're actually going to miss Jackie Groenen? Is she the most accomplished and best player in the team, or has Don lost the plot? What do you think?
No, because it's your perception. You just mentioned Ella Tuna. To me, the best player in the team is in all-round attributes is Honor. But people would say Russo, people would say Toon, people would say Herbs. It's your perception on who you think, what you class as the best. Is the best the most goals? Well, in that case, you're looking at Russo. If you're looking at the most assists, it's a dangerous thing when you start looking at just one stat and going, that's what defines best. In terms of, do I blame Skinner? No, but I will say there's a number of factors into why a player wants to move in the first place. Skinner might have been one of them. We don't know. But ultimately, he is the manager now. Whether people like it or not, he is the manager. Until he goes or until he decides, enough's enough, or the club let him go, whatever it is, he is Manchester United manager, and he needs to be able to put the team together that he wants. If it doesn't work, you can then look to the management and go, right, okay, this hasn't worked. We've tried your way. It's not worked. We're going to have to change it. But until he's done that, you can't put the blame on him. If we get loads of people today, oh, that's it, Jackie's gone, we're not going to get top three. Well, how is that? What if we go? We don't know. We might be sat here in May relegated, but we could be sat here in May as league title, as title winners. We could be sat here in the top three. We don't know. This is the thing. So I don't know how people can blame Skinner when we're not even in the season yet, because we've not seen what he can do with a side that he's built. So I think that's where I kind of stand on that. I get it. I think in terms of what you were saying there, will we miss it? The 0 goals obviously is a talking point. I think if you're at any other team, she'll probably score on a debut for PSG, let's be honest. So that'll be quite something. Yeah, it's an important stat to bring up, but ultimately I think you will miss the other attributes that Jackie would bring in that midfield, especially as Marty said. I think in your games against the top three, I think you do need a player like Jackie in there, but we might see another player come through that could evolve into that. We don't know. Ultimately, we don't know.
Okay, the one moment caller, because actually what we've been talking about there is goals. And you're quite right. It's a bit harsh to judge a midfielder by goals. They can't all be Paul Scholes, let's be honest. So at that point, you've got to sit there and think, well, what's a midfielder's job? Now, what I find interesting is the way in which these conversations occur, because you've got a player who hasn't scored any goals. And we're going to talk about assists in just a second, briefly, before we finally move on to the preview of Reading, which was what this was originally meant to be, before we got some great news coming through, as it always does just before we start. What I really find fascinating about all of this is that this doesn't apply elsewhere in the team, I don't feel. Because if you were to have this argument, we had it, Shane and Connor, you were both in on the conversation when we were talking about our top 11, and we really struggled with the midfield, and we ended up going with Jackie and with Tooney and with Zellum. But I literally had to lay down on the railway track to get 99 cap Katie Zellum into the team. And we're talking about this, losing that experience. 99 capped Katie Zellum against 60 cap Jackie Groenen and Hayley Ladd with her 50, 60. Yeah, it's like you're talking about experience. Why does that not happen? We're talking about changing things from defence to attack. These little things that aren't seen. But the difference is, for me, Katie Zellum, and this is why I wouldn't allow Jackie and Hayley to be chosen over Katie Zellum, because she scores goals, she makes goals, and she's experienced, and she leads the team, and she's a captain. But we don't get that sometimes with Katie. What we get is just a complete load of anger and ire at her because she's maybe not necessarily, the most friendly person on the pitch, waving and smiling and doing all of that. I don't know. I don't know what it is that upsets people about her. But if you want to go by the assists, and it's rare for me to go off on a rant as the host, so I apologise for that. But it actually tells you shot creation as well as goal creation. So in other words, how many times you've passed the ball to them and then they fluffed it, potentially. Now, it's no surprise Ella Toon over the last 2 seasons has been our best. 164 shots created, 31 assists. Zellam's after that with 140 shots and 16 assists. Just saying. But fair play, in third spot is Alessia Russo. You thought I was going to say Groenen. It's not. 65 and 15. She is actually fourth. She's had over 2 seasons, 12 assists. So there is an argument, to be fair, that Jackie does provide that little bit more going from back to front and setting goals up. So I think really the last thing I want to mention about this and just going around just briefly with all of that would be 2 things. So the first thing will be your best memory of Jackie Groenen. Obviously for Andy, she already mentioned the back heel, but if you've got one, it'd be nice for you to share that one. But also secondly, who in your eyes is the ideal replacement for a Jackie Groenen in our first 11, now that we've unfortunately had to change that before the season's even started. So those are the 2 things, and hopefully it'll take you 30 seconds to a minute to answer. And this time, just to annoy him, I'm going to start with Connor.
Yeah, I've got purely because of the reaction at the time. That I think just very, 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 very briefly on the experience thing. I think it's the difference in experience. I think Jackie's experience at a higher level, I think, than maybe you could argue Zellam's is. That's the only thing I will say on the experience front. In terms of a better or a Jackie kind of memory, I guess.
So you bringing the international game up has really surprised me on that one. That doesn't usually happen.
But I will say Jackie's near goal at Birmingham away, purely because I'd only just not long started coming at that point, and it was so close. It was everyone's reaction around me. Like I think Nat was on the steps, like on the floor. I think a couple of people kind of like that, like had a head in hat. It was so close. And that would have been the moment. So I think, yeah, that's definitely a highlight, just because it was inches from being in the top left. But I think replacement is Vilde. I think she's got to go straight in. I think in the bigger games, I think you're looking at Ladd and Zellam. But for me, Vilde, Zellam and Tooney on Saturday. I know we're going to get to predicted 11 in a bit, but that to me, I mean, what a midfield that is. The footballing intelligence you're not going to lose with having Vilde in there, and it's just a quality player as well. So yeah, Vilde for me.
Andy?
I think it very much depends who we're playing against, and that would have stood with Jackie in the team as well. I know you talked about best 11 that you guys picked, but to be honest, as far as midfielders go, I would debate with myself on who I'd pick in the midfield, even with Jackie in the mix, because I think Hayley Ladd has been pivotal for the time that she's been with us. We sorely missed her when she was injured and then when she was required in defence. I think Hayley Ladd is a player that can pick a pass but also defends all over the pitch and has a lot of calm about her to stay in control. So I'd struggle to leave Hayley Ladd out. Zellam's numbers speak for themselves. I'm seeing a lot of people say that Jackie does the unnoticed dirty work, but to suggest that Jackie Groenen's work goes unnoticed is crazy. Look at the meltdown that she's leaving. She's certainly not unnoticed. The dirty work that goes unnoticed is Katie Zellam, but she also does a bit of scoring and assisting as well. I think Zellam's always got a shout. Vilde, she's looked good at times, she's looked short at times, but we can see that she's got it. Jade Moore, you wouldn't put in because of what she's done, but from what she's supposedly capable of and the signs she's shown, she looks a player and she's vastly experienced. And then, you know, you can think of the 10s in the mix, but I think of the 10s as a part of a 4-strong forward line, to be honest, rather than the midfield in the team we've got. We've got Ella Toon. She's midfield, she's forward, she's striker, she's winger, she's all that at once. She's goofy putting a cross into herself to nodding at the back post. So I think you put Toon in as a given, as that third midfielder, fourth forward. And then I think it's just any two. With or without Jackie, it's any two of the rest of the midfielders.
Feels absolutely fair to me. And so, yeah, Shane, I think you were the last one. Because I went off in a dodgy way, I've forgotten who I asked.
I'll back up Connor's first point, because favourite moment quite is that shot away to Birmingham last season. Wow, just like, I mean, this is the whole point you saying about it's well known she hasn't scored. So even so early on in last season, we're all, come on, Jackie, fans are back in the grounds now. You can score a goal. We're here. We can properly celebrate one. And how close that went. Connor's right. I mean, there was limbs before the ball hit the net. It didn't hit the net. We were all ready. We had the chant that if Jackie scores, we're on the pitch. And whilst I'm sure we're not actually going to run on the pitch, because I'd like to go back to games afterwards, to be honest. But, that's the kind of feeling it was. If that goal went in, we're probably celebrating it like a cup final. And that might sound wrong to some people, but I think that's where we got. We were just really eager for us to score a goal. So absolutely agree with Connor on that one. Definitely one of the favourite moments, but probably the favourite moment, at least recently. Midfield, I'm kind of with Andy on this one. You can pick any of them that we've got. And to pick up on a couple of the comments where we're trying to compare what Jackie does against the top 3 team to what Katie does against the top 3 team, and that Katie doesn't control the midfield, but Jackie does. They're playing different roles on the pitch. You can't all control the midfield. You can as a collective, but if we're talking about one player controlling the midfield at any one time, only one can do that. So it's an unfair comparison to make, I think. And let's see how Katie does. Will Katie's role change? Will Katie play a bit further up the pitch now Jackie's gone? Will it be, starting 11? I was quite hardly campaigning for Hayley Ladd in the first place, and I accepted defeat on that one. But there will be times where we'll need Hayley Ladd, and that will allow Zellum to go further forward because Zellum doesn't have to play a holding role. So I think there's dynamism, if that's the right word. We've got a lot of rotation we can do. I think Mark will want a settled midfield. And obviously, pre-season would have been a great time to do that, but one of them's gone. So kind of back to the drawing board on that one. But yeah, I think depending on who we're playing against, probably we'll see certain players play. Quite who they will be yet, I don't know, but I think time will tell quite quickly on that.
Absolutely. So it is with that we lay Jackie Groenen on this show to rest. We're not going to be talking about her too much more, because let's be honest, I don't know of it. You've absolutely gone crazy in the comments. It's been one of the best shows ever. I've been teletext basically. I've not even been looking. Just yep, you can go. But I will watch this back and read them all properly. There's been some really, really good points thrown in there. So again, thank you very much, everybody, for getting involved. We love that. And with that in mind, we want to turn our eyes firmly forward because let's be honest, whether we're happy, whether we're sad, whether we're bothered, whether we're not, the simple fact remains, as Shane says, that Saturday there is a game. It's the official first weekend of the season, and it's home against Reading, not at the Spurs Stadium as we initially were hoping. So we're all going to be off there. Hands up if you're going to Reading.
Well,
I'm going
to Reading. if you go to Reading, you might be. There's a game on down
Reading's
there.
closer to me, Connor. For goodness' sake. So we're all going to go after that. That's great news, and hopefully there's loads of you. I mean, there should be lots of you. Close to a sellout crowd, we think. We managed to get our counter looking at the game, and we can confirm that Charlie has said we virtually sold out of most of them. There's about a couple of hundred left. So get in there quick if you want them.
When Charlie watches this back, she'll be like, "Is that what Barry thinks I sound like?"
But less bloking. Seems fair to me. Anyway, getting involved in my games again, Connor. We played 2 games against Reading so far, according to Google anyway, so let's hope they haven't mugged me off entirely. September 2021, so we've had them around about the first game of the season last year. I believe that was when Onabacha scored a goal. Remember that one? Nice, tasty little right footer, top right-hand corner. And everybody's favourite right midfielder, Kirsty Hansen, got involved in that one as well. She's on 90 games, by the way. 90 games. This could have been her Centurion year. But she's buggered off somewhere else. It's outrageous. I should be looking for your shiny dome on telly, Barry. Well, you can give it a go. I'm in the usual sort of place. It will be next to Connor somewhere, I'm sure. Me and Andy mixed up because that could happen also. But the one that I wanted to look at, I'm going to get my statistician, my technical monkey here, Connor, to push the buttons. This is the team that we put out at Reading earlier on this year in March. The game where Leah Gorton scored 2, Alessia Russo scored 1, and we won 3-1 away. And I just want to say, I mean, Andy, Crawley now looks almost unrecognisable to the side that we are likely to put out on Saturday, don't you think?
Look at that defence. Is that even a defence? I mean, they are recognised defenders, but compare that to what we've got available now. And the midfield looks better when you've got a defence behind them. So I think there's a few players that are given starters for Saturday. But then I think you look at that defence and what we've got available now, and we are several levels above what we had in defence then, which puts our midfield a couple of levels above, even if you're taking Jackie out. And with that, you look at the forwards we've got available, and I think while there's a lot of similar pieces, some of those pieces have grown a lot in the last 12 months or so, and some of the pieces we've added add a lot more stability to building up from the back. So I think we're 10 times the team that shows on paper.
Absolutely. Shane, your thoughts on the difference in literally just a few months, that the 7 that have come in? I mean, it's definitely, when you look at it like that in the cold light of day, it's the potential is definitely still there, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, the first thing I looked at was the strikers. You've got obviously Thomas middle, Russo pushed out on the right. When we were kind of in this phase of we need this person to play, but we can't play them where they should play because I need someone else to play there, so we almost accommodate them. Accommodate's probably the wrong word because it makes it sound bad on the player. It's a good reason that the player's being put on the pitch, but not in their best position. I think what a lot of these signings we've got this summer allow us to do is play people in their actual positions. And there are people that are versatile who can change around, and they can play left wing, they can play right wing, or they can play it everywhere across the front 14 positions that exist in football these days. But I think just that stability where you have players in natural positions, or as close to natural even, can only be a benefit. Let's get them where they're going to be most effective. And I think that's what Mark Skinner's trying to do with the signings he's made. Andy makes a brilliant point about the defence as well, of course. I mean, back then, Millie would have been out, injured for an unknown period of time, or at least unknown, obviously, at the time. So it would be good to see Millie come back into that team. Obviously, Aoife's got to come back at some point, unless she's probably not going to be back in time for this weekend. But just the options we've got and the experience that we've brought in, I think just makes the difference. Like Andy said, the midfield, any midfield can look a lot better when it's surrounded by better things than what was, I think is the right way to word that.
Absolutely. And Connor, your thoughts looking at that team compared to the one that's likely to be mentioned? Just imagine if you put the same one except for Jackie. I'd be like a right idiot, wouldn't I? But you never know.
Yeah, it's like you said, that the defence was different to what we're going to see at the weekend. Like I said, I think someone put it in the comments. It is worth mentioning. Obviously, both our starting centre backs were out at that point, so that's why we kind of had Maria and Diane in there. Obviously, a little bit concerned at times. I don't know if you remember back to the away game at Reading. It was a bit tense in that second half. I think the first half was just manic. It was just end to end, just absolute kind of free flow, and it was good game, especially for a neutral. The second half was a little bit nervy, especially towards the kind of last 15, 20 minutes, and I think a better backline would do us better. As for the rest of the team, you're looking at there, it's going to be fairly kind of similar. Obviously, take Jackie out, might probably Vilde. We're going to get to a predicted 11 in a second, so I'm kind of stealing that section of the show here. But yeah, I think that's the key takeaway when I was looking at that earlier. And obviously the Reading home game, pretty much almost a year to the day, isn't it? What's going on here? Sorry, I've interrupted. Snarking like Honna's hair. I've had this cut just for you, Sang, as well. So I don't know.
He's not impressed, mate.
So unimpressed. He's leaving early.
I'll just do a side on. I'll just talk that way. Anyway, but I can't remember what I was saying. Yeah, it's a completely different team. Yeah, Reading first game of the season last season, which was a decentish game. Dodgy goal disallowed for them. You could argue.
It's actually the third time we'll have played Reading in our first home game of a season as well. We had them in the first season. We had them as well.
There we go. That's an interesting stat for you. So, yeah, it's one of those. The team will be different, but I put in the tweet that I put out earlier, we beat them comfortably last season. I'd expect more of the same, but we can't get too complacent because they have got some decent players in there.
I'm so tempted, honestly. There was a point where Connor and I were talking about some of the things we were going to do, and we mentioned he said something about predicting the Reading side that might play on Saturday. I went, what? We're not doing that. I think I can only name one, and she was playing for us in the last game. I'm just so tempted to throw it out there. Go on then, Connor, who they got? But I'm not going to do that to you because all your street cred might go. So,
hey, Deanne Rose, I'll tell you, she caused us a lot of issues in the away game, especially. I will say that the kind of the goal came from her. You know, it was kind of her pace running in behind. That'd be the one player I'm looking at. You know, kind of her pace running at the centre half. They've got to be on it, quite literally. So, yeah, if you're going to ask me to name a Reading player for you, that Rose would be the same.
Connor, if I'd have written our name down under the 3-1 bit that I'd written down here, I'd have been able to do that one as well. I didn't, so well played you. So, obviously, like I say, 5-1 over those two games. It's been pretty good. We had a cut. Connor did the bar before asleep after doing the sides. No, doing the sides before. Yeah, 5 goals, 1 conceded. How do you see this game on Saturday going? Because we've got players that could be making debuts, like proper debuts, competitive debuts. And it was a good pre-season, but we've had that gap. How do you think this losing the possibility to play against Spurs last weekend, now moving into this, was it good to have that extra week? How do you think it's going to be moving into that for the players? And Andy, we'll come to you first on that one.
I think it messes with your preparations, doesn't it? Missing that first game, you build yourself up to start the season. You want to start well, and then the game disappears. But that's the same for everybody. Everyone's in the same boat. We now get to start at home instead of away, which, you know, I would have loved to be talking about the second game this weekend, but first game of the season being at home is good for the fans in a way, I think. I hope that the crowd will be as big as it seems like it's going to be, and the players can feed from that. You know, they always talk about the fans anyway. They'll get the same kind of noise plus a few thousand more people if sales reports are accurate. And I think what I like about the recruitment this year is we've not made one main signing that you're looking to perform. We've got players who are good enough to start, but we've got more players good enough to start than the positions we've got. So I think people have got to prove themselves every game to keep the place. So I think we're going to see a lot of exciting football with the front players we've got. And I'm excited to see how we set up, how our defence looks. And I think I can't see anything other than us winning the game.
You know, I totally agree. I can't say, there he is. I wonder where you went, mate.
No idea what happened then.
Goodness me, all this.
You went to finish the haircut.
Fair play.
I'm going to get rinsed on Saturday, aren't I?
You really shouldn't have brought it up, to be honest with you. You kind of dug your own one there. Shane, I was going to ask you on that one. Andy's just mentioned it. It's got the potential to be close to nigh on a sellout at LSV, providing everybody turns up. First things first, am I right in saying you could potentially find a songbook somewhere on the Supporters Club website if they wanted to sing along?
Correct, yes, there is a songbook on there. I'll do Andy's shameless plug for him as well. If anyone buys the most recent edition of the Barmy article, there is a nice little handy QR code in there as well, which will take you directly to the songbook. So very much accessible, obviously paper free. So we're all doing our bit. Unlike Andy printing in paper, of course.
There it is.
Of course, I'm joking, but yeah, no, it's obviously available. Might be a one song that's going to have to be taken out now, of course, but we've added this summer as well, so all good things. A lot of good work by that man there or there, whichever way the screen's going. But he's very good contributions to the songs again, as always.
I wrote a new Jackie song 2 days ago, some of my best work, and it's gone.
Well, all good things come to an end, don't they, sadly? But the reason why I brought up the attendance there, Shane, is because as good as it's going to be to have those people there, it's going to be massive for the girls as well, isn't it? You know, they went to Old Trafford. It wasn't a sellout, but there were a lot of people there. It may not be as much, but there's a difference, isn't there, between a really big stadium that's like quarter full and a small stadium that's absolutely rammed to eat their sausage rolls, don't you think?
There is, and this actually goes back to something Casey Stoney used to say, which was, you know, in the whole debate about when you're going to play at Old Trafford used to crop up at some point every season, and her answer at the time was something I agreed with, you know, which was, why go and play in a quarter full, half full Old Trafford when we want to be filling Lee Sports Village? A full Lee Sports Village, an atmosphere in there would sound absolutely incredible than if you had the same number of people in Old Trafford. And that's not to detract away from what we all as fans did at Old Trafford earlier this year, because actually I think, given the number that was there, we actually made it sound pretty decent, I thought. So imagine more in Old Trafford, yes, because then that will sound better, but also, you know, we've not had over 5k at Lee, I don't think, unless we've played Man City a cup game at some point that it's been for. But yeah, over 5k, going back to the very, very first game there against Reading. So it will be good to see it as full as possible. And again, you know, the atmosphere will just be incredible, I think, and the players are going to cherish it.
Absolutely. And coming just literally off of what Shane's just popped in asking about when will the Cliff be ready, LSB is not really home. I might have lost the plot here. I mean, I've been working quite hard lately, so I might be mistaken. But I'm pretty sure the Cliff, was that not supposed to be a training facility? It's not necessarily going to be the place that we're going to be playing the games, I don't think. So the stuff that they're talking about for the Cliff, I'm pretty sure is training grounds. But I will check with the three knowledgeable people here: hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. Which one is... Only one of you played the game. Outrageous. There we go. Which excellent. That means Connor's speak no evil, so he can't do anything for the rest of the game. Unlucky.
I've got no idea what's going on.
That's fair.
You are right though, Barry. I think, from how I understand it, the Cliff was always, it was originally intended to be a training base for the team, but then obviously COVID happened and Carrington is now the place to be instead. So, which, you know what, I think that's a good thing, because at least they're integrated across the club there and not almost isolated off on themselves.
Yeah. So what do you think, Connor? Is it home? And are you looking forward to LSV, a full one, and watching United hopefully absolutely smash Reading?
I mean, yeah, it'll be good. I'd prefer to have started against Spurs away. Just very quickly on that, there's some comments going on at the moment about the rescheduling of the Spurs game. I am worried. I tweeted it earlier that Chelsea's scheduled game has been rescheduled for Kingsmeadow, not Stamford Bridge as previous, and it's midweek. So I'm worried United Spurs is going to be similar. So there's that. So I'd rather have kicked off against Spurs personally, especially because we'd sold out in away end. But back to, yeah, it's good to, I guess, start against home against Reading. It was my very first game as last season at home to Reading on a Friday night. So a little bit different, Saturday midday. It'll be interesting to see the attendance, because the Old Trafford numbers were good leading up to it, and then it was a lot lower than what was projected. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with it from an LSV point of view when it comes to attendance. the numbers that are being banded about, you're looking at between 6,000 and 7,500 potentially if all show up. If we get to LSV tomorrow, Saturday, and the attendance is kind of like 4.5, kind of 4.5, is that going to be a bit of a letdown from the numbers that have been kind of previously mentioned? I'm not too sure. So it'll be very interesting to see how many do turn up, because I don't know what the weather is on Saturday, but let's say it absolutely chucks it down. How many people are going to fulfill that because of the ticket price? We don't know. Anyway, it's good to see. It's good to see the numbers. I just hope it continues. I think I've said this all along when we did the Legacy of the Euro show. It's good that, one game is sold out. Let's get that for the next home game and the one after that and the one after that. Let's keep that going, not just 6,000 one week, 4,000 the next, and then we're back to 2,000 every week. It needs to stay at that number, in my opinion. I do think part of the reason why ticket sales have maybe gone up, one is the Euros, two, there's no other United game this weekend. That probably has some part to play in it. So I don't know. It's good. It's good numbers, but I want to see it consistently, not just for one-off games.
And Ian here, who, let's be honest, is far more intelligent than the rest of us, has gone out there and actually found some information here with the highest crowd at LSV for the girls, 4,835 against City. So well played there. And TJ absolutely spot on, 4 to 4,500, like double last season. That's how I would have said it as well, TJ, but thankfully Ian was a little bit more specific there. And I reckon we can beat that. And if we do, that would be absolutely fantastic. Connor, I'm going to jump over to you very quickly here. Did you still want to do that thing with the team?
Yeah, why not? Let's pick our predicted 11, because who doesn't love a good little lineup prediction?
Well, I'll tell you what we should do, I think, on this one, Connor, because one thing we don't like to do here on All for United is to repeat content. We're not the BBC. So I think really what we should be doing here is there's three of us here who've had this debate. We've argued it. We've fought it. I don't think that Andy Slater is sitting there knowing the full 11 that we picked. He might have a rough idea. So I reckon Andy
but that's the difference.
And then we just tot at him.
That's the difference, Barry, between predicted and best. We did best 11, not a predicted.
Ah, look at him now. He's teaching me English.
All about the technicalities.
And I'm pretty sure, Barry, that one of my predicted 11 will be missing from your best 11.
Well, yes, probably will be.
Exactly.
I still think he should go.
I'll bring it up anyway.
And then we'll see if we agree or disagree with him. So, Andy, fill it in. Fill it in.
Okay. Player one. Player one. Let me think. She's never scored for United. In the team, she's never scored a goal. Yeah, Mary Earps. It's going to be Honor at fullback. I'd like to see Laetitia as the other fullback, but I think she'll play in the middle. So if you're going predicted, put Maya in the middle. Blundell at left back. Now, I'd like to be seeing. I think. How much has Tunkara played at pre-season? She didn't get a lot of minutes, did she?
No, it was the second. Well, not even the second half, wasn't it? Wasn't it like 20 minutes against who did we play? Everton.
Yeah. And then Millie's back on the grass, but she's not. Is she fully match fit? Is she ready to start? I'd love to see one of them. I have a weird feeling that it's going to be Thor because we haven't seen many minutes from the others, but I'm going to go with Tunkara.
Oh. Is this where you're going to test my spelling? Let's make sure I'm spelling this right.
Why would anyone bring up your English skills on a All for United show, Connor? Who would do that?
There we go.
English skills trying to spell a French name.
Are you happy at Slater, by the way, that formation 4-2-3-1?
Yeah. It's all the same now, isn't it? It's the new 4-4-2.
Connor, positions are fluid, mate. So
Katie Zellum, obviously. Number 100. And then if we're talking predicted, If we're predicting, I think I'm going to say Jade Moore.
Ooh. I wasn't expecting that name to come out. Is this the first one we're going to debate?
It's not necessarily who I would
agree.
It's not necessarily who I would pick, but as a prediction, the way she was used in pre-season, I think it was preparation for a couple of starts.
How do you want to play this?
That's my logic too.
Are we debating this now, or do you want to move on and then debate it at the end? Because I'd fight that. I don't think it's going to be more.
My choice would be Hayley Ladd. If it was my preferred, my preferred would be Hayley Ladd, but my predicted is Jade Moore.
Okay, right, we'll come back to it then because I'm going to fight that one. I don't think it's going to be more.
In number 10, Ella Toon.
Yeah.
Jump to number 11 for Rousseau. And then these two, Jesus.
The real test.
I would like to see Leon start on the right. No, I'd like to see Leon on the left and Garcia on the right. I think we're going to see Galton on the left. And I think Garcia will start. I think she'll start on the right.
I've got probably 3 that I don't agree with in that team.
Brilliant. So just to wind Connor up even more, Shane, what do you think about Andy's chosen 11 there? Do you think any of those are not good predictions?
I'm pretty much in agreement with that as a prediction. I'm certainly with him on Jade Moore. I, for the same reason, how she was used in pre-season. I just think that seems the more likely. I can't see Galton not being picked to start either, which then means it's who do you start, Garcia or Leon? The only curveball I can think that might get thrown at us is, will Rousseau start, given one of the latecomers into pre-season and obviously only started against Everton, so there's been one pre-season game starting, and I'm wondering, will he start Leon up front? That's the only curveball I think might get thrown at us.
See, that's not in agreement with none of those are my. Well, Moore is one, but not the other two.
No. John Fry seems to be mostly. He's got Mary, Maya Millie, Linkara. That's the math for that one. And Onna, the team back in. Midfield 3, Katie, Vilde and Tooley with Paris, Rousseau and Galton. So we've managed to make you hold on long enough. Come on then, Connor. Well, where do you disagree?
I want to put this to the chat as well. Can I go player by player and let's see what the majority is? Because I don't think Tunkara starts. I think it'll be Millie or Maria, just because they're more able, I guess, to the league already. And I think it'll be one of those two. I don't think Tunkara starts. I think Maya starts at centre. I think the rest of the back 4 or back 5 I agree with. It's just Tunkara. I don't know what people in the comments think. I don't think Tunkara starts personally. But
I've got to be honest, Connor, and it pains me to say so. I'm not sure she will either. But the amount of pictures I've seen of her not looking too fit or too well does make you wonder if she's fully fit yet or not. But she did play the last bit of the last friendly that we had, and she had a lot of time since then. So I think if I had to, I would probably go with Millie. If I'm honest, I think if she's fit, she'd bring her back. But I think Tunkara, I think 50-50 really, isn't it? Coin toss. TJ doesn't think Tunkara will be picked either. Chris Ratcliffe's has got Millie. Millie for Blundell. This is a new one. Let's try this one. Nicky, what are you doing here? Millie for Blundell, but move Millie inside.
Yeah, Maya at fullback. What I would like to see Maya at fullback and then 2 centre halves, but this was predicted. I agree with the preference.
That's the difference, isn't it? If you're talking about what you want, I'd want Honor at left back and Maya at right back and Tunkara and Millie in the middle. But I don't think that's what's going to be predicted.
I think that's why these are always so hard, because you do get clouded by your personal preference.
It's all right though, Shane, because nobody's writing it right come Saturday. Nobody's doing that. No, nobody has done that much. Connor, what's your second argument?
So are we sticking with Tunkar, or are we put in Millie or somebody else?
Most people seem to be quiet, which, you know, in this world is agreement with the first person probably. So
quiet.
I'll move on quickly if I were you.
Hang about. There's three.
You're not gaining traction, son.
There's 3 comments here agreeing with me, not a single one agreeing with Tunkara. Hang about. What's sabotage?
Did you say 3? I'm not seeing where you're seeing 3 here. I mean, John Fry, this selection is not what I would pick, so he's not happy. But in general, for the looks of it on there,
he's saying his 11 is his prediction, not his preference. That's what he's saying.
TJ thinks. Well, there you go.
There we go. I'll take that. That's more than agreement.
That's like I don't want to, but I think I've got to.
Shudders.
It's one of those. The way I see it, Connor, right? We're looking at all of that. There's 32 people, according to 30, 33, 32. Someone couldn't make their mind up. 32 people watching. If 5 agree with you, it's a bit like when people go marching. Like, oh, there was 1 million people in London. 69 million people weren't. So, you know, I'm not sure people as it is now. Yeah, Yehuda's joining you. To be honest, your fan club's joining you now, but that's about it.
It's a democracy here. We can only go off what we've got. So
this is why he went off earlier. He had to go and send them all PayPal payments.
That'll be it. So okay, but I think we're fair on that one. It's either Tunkara or potentially Millie, and it is a coin toss because they've both been injured. Could be either.
When I tweet that tomorrow, I'll make sure it's very clear that this wasn't my decision underneath. Anyway, I'll move on because we'll be here all night. The second one that I'd debate is I don't think Jay Moore starts alongside Salah. I think it will be Vilde. I could, but I can only do 1 per video.
True story. Which makes it sound like he's got another one up his sleeve.
Let him go through the whole lineup, and then whichever one he feels most strongly about changing, that's the one for the poll.
Okay, I'll go for the other ones that I don't. So I don't think it'll be Moore. I think it will likely be Vilde because of just being Reading. Although I can see Moore starting, but I've got a stronger feeling it'll be Vilde, and I don't think Garcia starts on the right. I think it will likely be Paris on the right hand side. I don't think you bring Paris in on the money she's on. The name as she is, not to start her, personally. I'm not saying I fully agree with that. I'd like to see Garcia start, but I think Paris will start on the right.
I would say that necessarily start too many of the friendlies, did she? But Garcia did. Again, I think all of those that you said could be 50-50. Moore did start. I mean, you could argue that Garcia might not start. We might see Lucy Staniforth out on the right. You know, that's happened quite a bit as well. But yeah, let's see. What are the world saying here? Marty is questioning my judgment. That's not a good idea if you want to come back on. We've got Adriana Leon over here. Energy in that lineup. So seems like Joseph agrees with you there. VBR as well. So he's doing all right. He's picking up a few people here. Mickey's gone for the whole lot. He's put Paris on as well.
I think the one advantage that obviously Toon, Russo, Paris have kind of got now, as is Mary, is that with the Tottenham game being called off, they've had an extra week to get her back up to fitness. So that is an advantage for them in terms of do they start, I guess.
Good point here. But again, VBR needs to play if she wants to get her international time. Is Skinner going to be swayed by that? He did mention her. Nobody's mentioning Hayley Ladd there, and I think there's a great shout for Hayley Ladd to be potentially in there, providing she's fit and well enough. Well, it's tough. It doesn't feel like there is a huge amount of people here, Connor, going for you, to be honest with you.
I'll just change it when we come off and tweet it tomorrow.
Right, so you all heard that. So Connor Starling Roberts is going
evidence has been gathered.
I wouldn't do slated like that, so it's fine.
Yeah, you would. I'd do that to you.
Well, I've got it all written down, so if he does change, and to be fair, it's live on the internet, so that's the end of that. Okay, well, I think that either way, that is a cracking side. When you put that up, as we were just saying, against the team that played in the last game. So we've said Mary Earps still be the same goalkeeper. Hannah Blundell, it would still be. Honor Batcher, it would still be. The centre backs obviously very different. So that's 2 changes. Zelen would be there. There's no Groenen because she's gone. So it'll only be 3. Garcia instead of Russo there, but she would be starting up there. So that's not a change. 2. So actually, you're looking there at only 4 changes. 4 changes to a starting lineup from the team that won 3-1. But there's obviously a lot of people that we could bring in off the bench. So I think that's pretty good.
I was going to say this. What all this proves is what depth we've got. So if this isn't working at the time, or we need something a bit extra, look at who we can bring on to do that.
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot there, and I'm looking forward to seeing that tweeted out. And I think you should tweet it out with your "I disagree. I've got 3 other options. What do you think?" And that might fly some people over there for you. But before we do go, I want to shout out the Predictions League that has kicked off. We've set that all out. I think all 4 of us are involved in that. So very interesting to see where the bragging rights go there at the end of this week. But I'm not asking you to remember what you actually did predict. I do want to know what you think the score's going to be on Saturday. So, Connor, what do you think?
I've changed my mind so many times. I'm stuck between 2-0, 3-0, and 3-1 because I don't quite know which. I'll go with 3-0. I don't think we'll concede. Just, I think a little bit on the edge. First game of the season is always a little bit scrappy, so it's going to be a little bit like that, a little bit cagey in the first half. But yeah, I think 3-0. Russo, Garcia, Galton.
Oh, he's gone for scorers as well. Wow, all right then. Well, consider the bar raised, lads. Shane, what are you thinking?
Oh, less conservative, I'll go 2-0. Reading's not typically a team we score more than 2 against them. I think that game last season was probably the only time we scored 3 times against them. So I'll go 1 goal less with 2-0. As for scorers, yeah, I have no idea who that's going to be. I'm not going to put my hat on a prediction like that. I don't think.
Fair enough. And Slater, what do you think?
Well, before the news that Jackie had actually gone, I said 3-0, and now my prediction is 3-0.
Do you know what? Sorry, I'm not gonna name the person, but somebody did actually change their prediction league score after. So they'd sent it to me before the Jackie news, and I think they'd put 3-0 United. After Jackie had left, they genuinely messaged and said, "Can I change that to a 2-1 Reading win?" And I was like, "Really? That much of a swing?" So we've had a little bit of a late change on that one. So yeah, I can't see that.
I really hope we win 3-0 now.
We need to get up to a win, don't we? I think if we don't, you know what the fan base is like at the moment anyway. We have to get a winning start.
This comment.
I
know what he's talking about because this comes from, I believe it was a National League game of some description in, way down in the pyramid. Clearly, what we think is bad officiating is nothing compared to what's officiating down in those lower leagues, because this referee officiated a game down there, apparently walked off to an applause from the crowd. Something I think you will struggle to see at LS3 or any stadium that we're visiting.
And it wasn't even sarcastic applause.
Well, I did ask this question, but I think Ian seems to think that it was genuine.
Well, if it was, it's about time. It's all I can say is that we get one of those.
It's a nice warm-up for them before they come back to league, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Taib's gone for the highest one. He thinks it's going to be 6-0. Mostly 3-0s, 2-0s. Pretty much everybody thinking we're not going to concede. So yeah, here's hoping. So there we go. We have reached an end. It's flown by. An hour and 15 minutes. We've spoken about Jackie Groenen. We've spoken about Reading. It looks like we're all feeling very positive. We hope, obviously, the win. Tomorrow is Friday. There is no fans forum. We've put that on to today, obviously. Hence why that's not on tomorrow. Saturday, there shan't be too much. There'll be a little bit, I believe, potentially a little bit of wizardry on the old videos coming from Connor. So keep your eyes out there to see what we're going to be throwing out there. And on Sunday, yes, get this right, Sunday, we will be doing our match review because Monday, it's quite a busy day. There's a lot going on. So out of respect, we're not doing it on the Monday, and Tuesday's too late. So we're going to do that on the Sunday instead. We appreciate there's going to be other football teams playing. But let's be honest, they're not Man United, are they? So why do you care? Would be my answer to that one. So join us on Sunday for the match review. Let's see if we can start off with a win. I'm sure we can. I hope we can. And if I can stop babbling the minute I find the outro. There it is. Have yourself an absolutely wonderful evening. See you all very soon. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Oh, and buy the Barmy article if you come to the match. It's an absolute brilliant one, and I might be in it somewhere. Night all.